It started with a simple favor. Can you house sit for the weekend? My best friend, Leo, asked, tossing me his keys like it was nothing. We'd been tight since high school. Late-night video game marathons, crashing each other's dates, helping each other through breakups. So I said yes without thinking. What I didn't expect was for his little brother to still be there, and I definitely didn't expect what happened next. Leo had said his younger brother, Evan, would mostly be out. That was all he told me. I remembered Evan as a skinny, quiet kid who barely talked and was always holed up in his room whenever I came over. So when I arrived at Leo's place that Friday evening, I wasn't expecting to run into anyone. But there he was, taller, sharper around the jawline, standing in the hallway in a tight-fitting tank top and joggers. Definitely not a kid anymore. "Hey," he said, voice deeper than I remembered. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound casual while I set my duffel down. "Didn't know you'd be around." He gave a half shrug. "Plans changed," I nodded. "Cool, I'll stay out of your way." He didn't say anything, just watched me for a second longer than necessary, then turned and walked off. Later that night, I was in the guest room unpacking. I had just taken off my shirt, standing in front of the dresser, when I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. The door was cracked open, and Evan was standing there, watching. Our eyes met. Neither of us said a word. Then he turned and disappeared down the hallway. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was probably nothing. But from that moment on, everything felt different. He was always around, not in an obvious way. Just little things. Passing by the couch while I was watching TV, standing a little too close in the kitchen, asking questions that felt more personal than casual. I kept brushing it off, told myself I was imagining things, until Saturday night. Leo's house has this half-broken hot tub out back. I was halfway through a beer on the porch when Evan came out wearing just swim trunks and a towel. "You going in?" he asked, stepping in before I could answer. I hesitated, but it was hot, and honestly, I was curious. I stripped down and got in, trying not to notice how close he was sitting or the way his thigh brushed mine under the water. The steam made everything feel heavier. Charged. We didn't say much. The silence between us stretched out, uncomfortable, but not in a bad way. Then he spoke. "You know Leo thinks you're straight." I turned to him, surprised. He was watching me, face calm, eyes unreadable. "Yeah?" I said carefully. "Are you?" I paused. My heart thumped once, hard. "Not entirely," I said. He smiled, barely, and then he moved closer. Just a little. "Thought so," he murmured. I didn't move. Couldn't. I felt his fingers brush a drop of water from my cheek. Then they lingered. His touch wasn't hesitant. It wasn't bold either. It was testing. That's when I knew this weekend wasn't going to be simple. I didn't sleep much that night. After the hot tub, we didn't talk. Evan stood up first, water trailing down his chest, towel slung casually around his neck. He looked at me once more before heading inside, leaving me alone with 1,000 thoughts and the echo of his fingers on my face. I sat there in the warm water until it turned cold. The next morning, I found him in the kitchen, barefoot in that same tank top, eating cereal like nothing had happened. He didn't look up when I walked in, just nodded toward the coffee maker. "You sleep okay?" he asked, eyes still on his bowl. I grabbed a mug. "Yeah." "You?" he shrugged. "Fine." That was it. No mention of the hot tub, no weird looks, just like everything had reset. But I couldn't shake the way his hand had lingered on my cheek, or the way he'd asked me that question. Not entirely. The words played on loop in my head all day. Around noon, I told myself to stop being weird. I'd promised Leo I'd water the plants and check the mail. Normal stuff. Just do that. Be normal. I stepped out onto the porch, watering can in hand, when I heard the sliding door behind me. Evan again. This time in a pair of faded jeans and nothing else. His skin still damp from a shower, hair messily pushed back. "I'll help," he said, reaching for a second can. I nodded and handed it over. We didn't talk, but we moved side by side, working our way around the flower beds and the front hedge like it was the most natural thing in the world. Occasionally our arms brushed, but neither of us pulled away. Back inside, I was toweling off sweat when I noticed something odd. My phone was gone. Not on the counter, not in my bag, not anywhere. I retraced my steps, mildly annoyed. "Hey, you seen my phone?" I asked, poking my head into the living room. Evan was stretched out on the couch, holding something. He raised it. "My phone." "Yeah." "You got a text." I froze. "You read it?" He didn't answer right away. Just held it out for me to take. When I stepped closer, his eyes stayed locked on mine. "It was from some guy. Called you, babe." I felt my stomach drop. My last situationship. We hadn't spoken in weeks, but apparently he didn't get the memo. I took the phone. "Thanks," I said, voice tight. Evan sat up, elbows resting on his knees. "So you've been with guys?" It wasn't a question. I hesitated. "Yeah." He nodded slowly. "Cool. That was it. Just cool. Like I'd told him I liked pineapple on pizza." But something about the way he said it made my skin prickle. I turned to leave the room, but his voice stopped me. "Do you ever think about it?" he asked. I turned halfway, confused. "Think about what?" He didn't look at me, just stared at the floor. "Like, doing something with someone you shouldn't?" I didn't know how to answer that. My chest tightened, my mouth went dry. "Depends who it is," I said quietly. He finally looked up at me, and I felt the air shift. He wasn't playing around. Not anymore. "You think I'm off limits?" he asked. I didn't move. "Aren't you?" He stood slowly, walking toward me until there was barely a foot of space between us. "Do you want me to be?" I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could feel was the heat radiating off his skin, the look in his eyes. Uncertain, hungry, scared, curious. "I don't know," I said honestly. He nodded once, then stepped even closer. Our chests nearly touched. I felt his breath against my face, and every nerve in my body lit up. "Can I?" he started, voice cracking slightly. "Can I try something?" I didn't answer with words. I just closed the last bit of space between us. And in that split second, before anything happened, I realized this wasn't just a fling or some reckless experiment. This was going to change everything. The first touch wasn't dramatic. It was hesitant, barely there. His hand brushing the side of my jaw like he was afraid I'd pull away. I didn't. I leaned in, slow and careful, and our foreheads touched. We just stood there, breathing in sync, hearts racing, not quite brave enough to move further, but too far gone to pull back. Then Evan tilted his head, closed the last inch of distance, and kissed me. It was soft, uncertain. His lips tasted faintly like coffee and the strawberry cereal he'd been eating. I could feel the tension in his shoulders, the nervous grip he had on my arm, the way his body was practically shaking with the weight of it. And then it changed. His hands slid behind my neck, pulling me in harder, bolder now. Like he'd made a decision. Like he didn't care what the rules were anymore. I backed us into the kitchen counter, gripping it behind me as he pressed forward, our bodies flush. Every inch of him felt hot, too hot, and I was spiraling, caught in something I'd spent all weekend trying to ignore. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. He looked at me, eyes wide, lips parted like he couldn't believe what he'd just done. "Sorry," he muttered, stepping back. "Don't be," I said, maybe too quickly. We stood in silence, the buzz of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. He rubbed the back of his neck and glanced at the floor. "I've never done that," he said quietly. "With a guy?" "With anyone," he admitted, his face turning a shade redder than I thought possible. That hit me like a punch to the gut. Not just the kiss, not just the attraction, but me being his first anything. "Why now?" I asked, voice softer than I intended. Evan shrugged, trying to sound casual. I don't know. Maybe I just needed the right person. The way he said it, the way he looked at me when he said it, made something in my chest twist. We didn't talk about it again that day. Instead, we fell into this weird rhythm of pretending nothing had happened while also acting like everything had. He followed me around the house more, sat a little closer on the couch, laughed at my dumb jokes like they were actually funny. Every brush of his arm, every glance felt like it carried a secret. Later that evening, we were in the living room, watching some mindless action movie. I was stretched out on the recliner, he was on the couch. Every few minutes, I could feel his eyes on me. I ignored it until I couldn't anymore. "You good?" I asked, not looking away from the screen. "Yeah," he said. Pause. "You?" "Yeah." Another pause. Then, "You think Leo would freak out if he knew?" I turned to look at him. His face was unreadable, but his foot was bouncing against the carpet. "Honestly?" I said. "Probably." Evan nodded slowly. "Thought so." He didn't seem angry. Just sad. "You regret it?" I asked. His eyes snapped to mine. "No. Do you?" I shook my head. "Not even a little." He smiled, just a tiny one. "Good." We didn't kiss again that night. We didn't touch. But something had shifted, solidified between us. Not just tension anymore. Something warmer. Something that scared the hell out of me. Because for the first time, I wasn't just curious about what was happening. I wanted more. The next morning, everything felt normal. Almost. Evan was already in the kitchen when I walked in, flipping pancakes like he hadn't kissed me breathless 2 nights ago. He didn't look up right away, but when he did, there was a flicker of something in his eyes, an acknowledgement. "Hungry?" he asked, sliding a pancake onto a plate. "Starving," I said, sitting down at the counter. He poured syrup with a smirk. "Good. I made extra. Figured you'd wake up late." "Generous. You need the energy," he said, eyes meeting mine for just a second too long. "Busy weekend." I choked on my coffee. He grinned but didn't push it. After breakfast, we both drifted into our routines. Me scrolling emails, Evan glued to whatever online course or YouTube spiral he was lost in. But there was a low hum under everything now, a quiet charge that hadn't been there before. Around noon, I walked into the hallway and found him leaning against the doorframe to the guest room. "I was thinking," he said. "Dangerous." He rolled his eyes but smiled. "Do you want to go somewhere?" "Where?" "I don't know. Anywhere. Just not here." I studied him for a second. "You okay?" He hesitated. I feel like if we stay in this house, I'm gonna either kiss you again or freak out. Or both." I didn't know whether to laugh or kiss him on the spot. "All right," I said. "Let's get out of here." We ended up at this overlook just outside of town, a spot Leo had shown me years ago, where the hills dipped into pine-covered valleys and the city felt 1,000 miles away. We sat on the hood of my car, passing a gas station soda back and forth like teenagers. For a while we didn't talk, just watched the sky shift from pale blue to soft gold. Then Evan spoke. "You know, I thought I had it figured out," he said. "What?" "Me, my life, who I am. I thought I was just boring, quiet, straight." I stayed silent. But then you showed up, and I felt not those things. Still, I didn't say anything, just let him talk. And it's not like I'm suddenly labeling myself or anything, but I can't stop thinking about what we did and the way it felt. My throat tightened. "I'm scared," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. I finally turned to him. "Of what?" He looked straight at me. "That I'll want more. And it won't be a one-time thing. And then I'll have to figure out what that means. And deal with how people see me, how Leo sees me." His voice cracked a little on that last part. I exhaled slowly. "It doesn't have to be figured out today." He nodded, but I could see the storm in his eyes. Then he asked the one thing I wasn't expecting. "Do you want more?" It hit me right in the chest. I could have joked, could have changed the subject, but I didn't. "Yeah," I said. "I do." He didn't smile. He didn't move. He just let the words hang there, soaking in. Then he shifted closer, so close our shoulders touched. "You're not what I expected," he said. "You either." The sun was dipping lower now, casting long shadows. He leaned his head against my shoulder. We sat like that, quiet, still, hearts beating fast. And for the first time all weekend, I wasn't confused, I wasn't overthinking it. I was just there. With him, when we got back to the house, the light had shifted, the kind of golden hue that only lasts for about 20 minutes before night officially takes over. It painted everything in a soft haze: the porch, the living room walls, the curve of Evan's jaw as he kicked off his sneakers in the entryway. We were quiet, but not the kind of quiet that begged to be filled. It was the kind that said we understood. I went to the guest room to change, pulled off my hoodie, tossed it onto the chair, and just as I was about to close the door, I heard a soft knock. Then Evan's voice. "Can I come in?" I hesitated for half a second. "Yeah." He stepped inside slowly, eyes scanning the room like it felt foreign to him now. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, and that was it. He stepped forward, stopped just inches from me. "I've been thinking about this all day," he said. "Me too," I said. And then we kissed again, less tentative, more certain. His hand slid up under my shirt like he finally let himself be curious. I felt every inch of his hesitation turn into something bold, something real. We didn't rush. We didn't speak. We just moved. Soft touches, breathless pauses, learning each other in ways we hadn't let ourselves imagine. Every time our eyes met, I saw it there. The confusion, the heat, the need. He was figuring himself out in real time, and I was right there with him. When we finally collapsed onto the bed, tangled in each other, he was quiet for a long time. His fingers traced random shapes on my chest as the ceiling fan spun lazily overhead. Then, quietly, he said, "I don't know what this means for me." "You don't have to," I replied, brushing his hair back. "Not now, not for anyone but you." He exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for hours. I don't want this to be a one-off, like something we never talk about again." "It won't be," I said, and I meant it. We stayed like that for a while, our bodies warm and close. At one point, I thought he'd fallen asleep, but then he whispered, "Leo would kill me if he knew." I smirked. "Guess we won't tell him yet." "Yet?" he repeated, looking up. I shrugged, suddenly shy. "I mean, if this becomes a thing, if we become a thing." Evan stared at me for a beat, then smiled. Really smiled. "I think I want that." "You sure?" "No," he said, "but I want to find out." And that was enough. That night, we slept in the same bed, fully clothed, fully wrapped around each other, like we were both scared to wake up and find it had all been a dream. The next morning was the first time it felt real. No more late-night tension or quiet hallway glances. We'd crossed the line. More than once. And now the sun was up, pouring through the blinds. And Evan was still in my bed. Still curled against me like he belonged there. For a while, I just watched him sleep. His mouth slightly parted, one hand tucked under his cheek. I didn't know what we were now, but I knew I didn't want him to get up and pretend like nothing had happened. Eventually, he stirred, opened one eye, gave me the sleepiest, most genuine smile I'd ever seen. "Morning," he mumbled. "Hey," I whispered. He stretched, yawned, then blinked at me. "You're still here." I raised an eyebrow. "Where else would I be?" "I don't know," he said. "I guess part of me thought you'd vanish." I reached out, brushing my fingers along his jaw. "Not planning on going anywhere." He leaned into my touch, just for a second, before pulling the blanket over his head. I laughed. "You hiding?" "Yup," came his muffled voice. "Woke up too happy, not ready to deal with the existential fallout." Of liking you." That shut me up. Because hearing him say it, plain, unfiltered, hit different. No more skirting around it. No more guessing. "You like me," I repeated. He peeked out from under the blanket. "Obviously." Obviously, we shared a look, one of those long, unspoken ones, where 1,000 things get said without either of us speaking. Then he sighed and rolled onto his back. "I've never done any of this before," he said. "Like, at all." "I can tell," I teased gently. He groaned. "Don't roast me. I'm having a crisis." "You're doing great." "Yeah?" I leaned over and kissed his shoulder. "Better than great." That seemed to relax him. We got up a little later, made breakfast together. Well, I made toast while he criticized my technique and nearly burned the eggs. It felt weirdly domestic, like we'd done this before, like this wasn't new even though it completely was. And then, just as we were settling into the couch with coffee and bad morning TV, Leo texted me. "Be home in a few hours. Traffic's light." I stared at the screen. Evan leaned over my shoulder. "That him?" "Yup." We both went quiet. "So," he said eventually, "what now?" "Now?" I echoed. "We keep it to ourselves. For now." He nodded, but there was something behind his eyes. Something uncertain. "You okay with that?" I asked. "I think so," he said. "Just if I start acting weird, don't freak out. I'm figuring it out. This. Me." I reached over and squeezed his hand. "I'm not going anywhere." And I meant it. Even when the front door opened later that day and Leo walked in, tossing his bag on the floor with a loud "Yo!" Even when Evan immediately vanished upstairs, mumbling something about needing a shower. Even when Leo turned to me and asked, "You two get along all right?" I looked at him, smiled, and said, "Yeah. We're good. More than good." But that was a story for another day. Leo was back, full of stories and road trip complaints. He didn't notice anything strange, didn't clock the slight tension when Evan avoided the living room, or how I suddenly got quiet whenever he brought up how chill the weekend must have been. It was like we were both walking on tightropes, careful not to slip. Later that evening, when Leo disappeared into his room to unpack, I found Evan in the backyard, sitting on the edge of the old hot tub. His legs were dangling over the side, the same spot where everything had started. I walked over and sat beside him. He didn't say anything at first. Just passed me a soda and looked out at the dark yard, where fireflies blinked between the bushes and the neighbor's porch lights glowed faintly in the distance. "I don't want to pretend nothing happened," he said, breaking the silence. "I don't either." He turned toward me. "But I don't know how to not pretend. Not with Leo around. Not with anyone." I nodded slowly. "We don't have to have it all figured out tonight. But eventually," I said, "but only when you're ready." He was quiet for a beat, then added, "I want to keep seeing you, like, after this, not just when the house is empty." I looked at him, my chest tightening. "Me too. I don't know what that means yet, but I know it felt good. Being with you." "It felt like more than just good," I said softly. He smiled, and I saw it in his eyes. Relief, maybe. Or gratitude. Or something that was starting to look a lot like affection. Then his expression turned sheepish. "I've never kept a secret this big." "Well," I said, nudging his shoulder, "I'm pretty great at being a dirty little secret." He laughed, almost too loud, then covered his mouth, eyes wide. "Shut up!" Leo could hear. "Then don't laugh so hard. You're the one making jokes." We grinned at each other like idiots. The air between us felt lighter, braver. Eventually, we slipped back into the house, side by side, close but not touching. Leo was half asleep on the couch with a bowl of popcorn on his chest, some old movie flickering on the screen. I caught Evan's eye as we passed the hallway. His look said this isn't over. His smirk said I want more. And I knew something had started here, something neither of us had expected. Not a fling, not a one-time mistake, something that might be real. And for once, I wasn't scared of it.